There's a lot of people that are still out in the hallways trying to find this room. We apologize. It's a little difficult to get to. And if you hear me during the session down the hallway hollering, "Safety by Design's around the corner here," you'll understand why. As a matter of housekeeping, make sure you sign in, please, or in this case, scan in. It works best if you hold the scanner about a foot away from your badge and tilt your badge just slightly. You need to do it before the session starts, during the session, or immediately after. If you wait too long, it won't register for this session. It will register for the following session. And also, as a matter of courtesy, will you please turn off your cell phones? That's for the courtesy towards our speaker as well as our other guests that are in the room. Today's topic, or the session, is titled Safety by Design, Working Together to Make Our Industry Safer. Be a part of the growing nationwide trend of buildings being designed with construction safety in mind. Construction safety is everyone's business, engineers included. Whether you're motivated by the ethical mandate to hold paramount safety, the common sense desire to minimize injuries and project delays, or the business goal of best serving the client, you need to be informed about what you can do on a voluntary basis to make your buildings easier and safer to erect. Mike Toole is an associate professor of civil and environmental engineering at Bucknell University. Dr. Toole is a professional civil engineer registered in multiple states, a fellow within the American Society of Civil Engineers, and an authorized OSHA instructor for the construction industry. He is the vice chair of ASCE's Prevention Through Design Committee and co-chair of the Design for Safety Workshop within the National Institute for Occupational Health and Safety, or Occupational Safety and Health, NORA, Construction Sector Council. His professional employment includes the U.S. Navy Civil Engineers Corps and a multidisciplinary engineering firm. During this session, you will learn about the principles, process, and design tools underlying the Prevention Through Design initiative that is slowly diffusing across all segments of the construction industry, and see specific safety and design methods published by the NISD and NEA. Critical barriers such as liability concerns and designer lack of safety expertise will be candidly discussed. Please help me welcome Mike Toole.
Well, thanks everybody for showing up. It's first of all, finding this place took me a while this morning. If you see me grimace a little bit, it's not from I don't like what I'm saying or what I hear from you. I went to Nicaragua. I just got back about 2 weeks ago. I was helping to build a water line up there to a village that had no water, and I took away memories, and I also took away something else. So we'll see how this goes. I don't think I'll be running off, but we're going to spend today talking about something that's actually quite controversial. I'll say that. I want to hear from the beginning. I want to hear from you folks at the end. Give me your candid feedback and concerns, and we'll try and deal with it a little bit during the presentation, but afterwards I want to talk. And I've got some folks in the audience, I have to admit, some plants, some folks who are already doing this, are thinking about it, but doing it. And so you'll get a chance to hear from them as well and maybe answer some questions. So I am at Bucknell University. Haven't done too well in March Madness the last couple of years, but we did beat Kansas a couple of years before that. That's our one claim to fame. I'm going to just go through quickly our concept as some examples so you know kind of what it's about. I'll tell you what's happening internationally and in the U.S. since about 1994. Again, talk about some barriers. Why is this thing happening so slowly if it's such a good idea? Talk about some tools that you'll see, and again, how you might be able to implement. I want to leave about 15 minutes for us to have some good conversation at the end. The process, what is this safety by design? I started calling it a long time ago designing for construction safety. In a minute, I'll tell you the difference, but you might have heard that prevention through design. But safety by design is very simple. It's getting designers, engineers, structural engineers, other types of engineers, architects, to think about the safety of construction workers during the design. So right now when we say, you know, constructability, everybody agrees constructability is a good thing. So we design for, it means you can design it or build it fast. You can build in quality. You know, it's cost effective. What we're saying is let's get safety in there too. So some people say I'm already doing it, but many design professionals are not doing it. NIOSH, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. That's not part of OSHA. OSHA is enforcement. NIOSH is a government entity within the Center for Disease Control and the National Institute of Health. They are doing research on construction. So they have a broader term. I just want to point out some things. Again, it's the design process. That's when it happens. But look what they've done. Not only the construction, but the manufacture, use, maintenance, and disposal. So they're really looking at the whole life cycle. It's the same idea. It's getting designers to think about more things than they're currently thinking. What safety by design is not, is one, saying that design engineers or architects need to take a role in site safety during construction. We absolutely do not want that risk, and frankly, there's not a lot they should be doing during that time. And so that's not what we're saying. We're not trying to make them responsible. We're also not saying that we should have legislation. You'll hear me say in a second, there's been legislation in England for over 10 years, and we don't want that. We want to do it on a voluntary basis. And the last thing we're saying is a principle that, we should hold them responsible for accidents. This is not about a lawyer right to work act, not at all. Some of you may have seen this before. Actually, you know what? Can I just do very quickly, get a sense who I'm talking to and what your interest might be? Who here are educators somehow, in one way or another? Great. Who here are structural engineers or any type of other designers? Oh, you are a brave soul. I love you. And secondly, who are fabricators, erectors, and others. Okay, great. Well, thank you all. It's a wonderful mix of people because everybody can play a role in this. I'm not sure if you've seen this before. It applies to a lot of things, not just safety. So if as we go on through the schedule, right, so down here, we're just saying our ability to influence goes down as we go from conceptual design through to startup. And so here it's the ability to influence safety, but it could be influence quality, cost, etc. But this is just the concept that's driving this. The idea that the more you think about it, early in the process, it's going to make a difference. And it's a great idea. We'll talk more about that. But here there has, in fact, been some research. Mike Beam, who's a professor at East Carolina University, did some research for his doctoral work showing, again, a link, 22%. We've also got, you see, 42% of some fatalities in the U.S. around was somehow linked to design. And then Europe also did a study. These studies do not say that these engineers caused these fatalities or caused that accident. What it says is the design may have contributed, right? There's always many circumstances, many factors involved. Or had the design been a little bit different, then this accident might have been prevented. But it's not, again, we're nowhere saying that these engineers caused these accidents. But there is research that says this stuff can work. That is, thinking about safety might be able to prevent some injuries. For those of you who are engineers, you may or may not be a member of the NSPE. I'm a PE, but I'm not a member because I don't feel like paying the bills. But I know it's a good organization, NSPE. They have the Code of Ethics. My organization, the American Society of Civil Engineers, has the same sort of thing, that engineers shall hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. What is the public? Who is the public? Well, I was happening to the other day, someone pointed out to me, sent me to a link. NSPE's link in 1947, their Code of Ethics, specifically said, we have a duty not only to the general public, but to the folks who are working for us on the job site. They took that out. Some attorneys said, oh no, that's too dangerous. So what we have today is just this general public. The AIA, the American Institute of Architects, say specifically this does not refer to construction workers. I personally, as a design, as a professional engineer, I think it does. But that's something that we can argue about. My organization, American Society of Civil Engineers, say specifically number 2, under their first canon, engineers should recognize that the lives, safety, health, and welfare of the general public are dependent upon engineering decisions. So we recognize that safety is part of it. My friend and colleague Ted Shepard is on a committee with me within the ASCE. We have a site safety policy that also puts this there and says this is an important part of it. But still, how we interpret it, how we implement it is a different thing. But we think there are code of ethics reasons for doing this. Now, some of you are saying, that doesn't appeal to me. But hey, my company is about sustainability. Well, let me give you something to take back to your boss then. Sustainability, some people focused only on the environment. And they say sustainability is all about green building. Well, if you look at the people who are reading about sustainability, it's this pyramid, this triad. Environmental's up top. Down here, it's economic equity. It's the idea that anytime we do a project, we're not going to be very sustainable. We're not going to stay in business if we're not making money on it, or a nonprofit at least stay break even. But the third leg is the social equity. And so as design professionals or construction professionals, if you are not thinking about who you impact through your projects, if in fact there are things that you could do differently that would reduce the chance of accidents, to me that's not only an ethical issue, but it certainly implies that you're not really committed to social equity. So what I would suggest, I'd hope that you'd go home, and if you haven't been familiar with this already, read a couple books on sustainability and you'll get exposed to this triangle, because I think that's another way, frankly, of putting a good spin on this, because some people jump on sustainability even if they're a little suspicious about talk about safety. For many of us, it really comes down to bucks, right? It's got to pay off right from the bottom. So this idea of we think it does save money. Frankly, don't have research to show this yet. We're getting there. There's some firms doing it that I'll tell you about, but still no good studies yet. But the whole idea is, hey, if we're getting fewer accidents because we reduce the inherent danger, we're going to have fewer accidents, fewer fatalities, injuries. That's going to help our workers' comp, right? Everybody knows how you compete. You take your direct number of hours, you multiply it by your wage rate and your workers' comp premiums, and this is going to help you be more competitive if you reduce accidents. Productivity, right? That's going to get you, let things be a little more productive because you are not having to deal with all the hazard prevention, maybe PPE or using fall protection. The job has been designed to be safer right from the get-go. Fourth one there is if there's less accidents, there's going to be less delays. The owner's not going to be on your back as much, and so you can focus on other things like productivity, like quality. And then the last one is this whole designer-constructor interaction is a very important thing. In fact, at the next session that I'll talk about, there are going to be more about this. Jim Larson is going to talk about it. That's a key part of making it better. We know that. Anytime you have some dialogue, that's a good thing. Some quick examples. You've probably heard of this before. Some people think this is the low-hanging fruit. The idea that anytime you're putting up a building, you can design the built-in fall protection, the anchorage systems, right? Because the structural engineer that's a slam dunk for him or her. Very easy to do. They can do it quickly. For other folks, they can do it, but it takes longer. So they're not quite as familiar with the project. This one, you probably see that's a rooftop. That's not only used great for fall protection during the construction, but for window washing and other things for maintenance. So this we think is a good one that should be done. It will facilitate construction safety, and it'll also help with maintenance down the road. Some other examples, very specific to steel, is the whole idea of prefabrication. Taking work from the site, maybe particularly work that's usually done at elevation, where you need fall protection, move it down to ground, or better yet, move it off-site. Let the factory do it, where we've got machines, we've got automated equipment to do that. So anytime we can prefabricate, not only is it going to often save money, often save time, it's actually a lot safer too. So for example, you see some bridge trusses is one example of that, roof trusses, and even pre-engineered buildings. Now I know I'm not trying to take any work away from the trades, but I think to the extent that they could get away from some unsafe activities, they'll be happy to do that and they can move on to other projects. So prefabrication is a good example as well. I told you this has been done for a while. And in fact, in 1995, the UK, United Kingdom, started to pass these laws called the CDM. Who's heard of that before? Knew that Europe had some. So 1994, 95, it got implemented. Frankly, it hasn't worked that well. There's been all kinds of problems. They've tried to learn from it. They're doing it again. They revised it in 2007, brand new legislation there. And then the European Union jumped on board, and they have very similar legislation. So now designers have to do things like identify hazards on their plans, and they have to also try and minimize those hazards during their design. So again, some great ideas. I have a problem with it because it's legislated, it's mandated, and it was mandated and required before they even thought about how does the industry really work. So there's been all kinds of problems, but hopefully they're getting it fixed. And in the meantime, it is required over there. Australia is doing it more the way that I would like to see the U.S. is. They have their kind of OSHA, Department of Labor folks have some great resources. There's a website for you. And by the way, I'm going to leave my business cards down here. If you want a copy of this, should be able to get it off AISC eventually. But if you want it right away, just grab my card, send me an email, or leave me yours, and I'll be glad to send it to you so you can get these links. But Australia is one who is doing it on a encouraging but not required basis. But they're doing some good stuff down there. Here in the U.S., things have been going for a while. In 2004, I convened a group of mostly folks associated with American Society of Civil Engineers, contractors, designers, et cetera, in a group in Nashville, or was it Baltimore, and we got together and talked about it. That grew into something that OSHA took over, and they now have this, well, first of all, Construction Alliance, which is just where your organization has an alliance with OSHA to focus on safety, and they have this roundtable. We get together about once a quarter, and this is a specific work group that's gotten formed and has met just about every quarter since 2005. They also have a work group on fall protection, and sometimes the two groups get together. So that's been going for a while. Again, when people say, OSHA is going to mandate this, they're going to write regulations about this, I can say, you know what, no, they really have not thought about that. They're not asking for our input on that. They're not going to be able to do it on their own. So frankly, this has been a good way of keeping tabs of what OSHA is up to. And in fact, I have to say they've been a very good partner to work with. The second one, there's a lot of acronyms there, I'm sorry, so just OSHA, everybody knows what is. DFCS, Design for Construction Safety. Barry mentioned NIOSH, National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, has something called the NORA, National Occupational Research Agenda. NIOSH is saying, you tell us what we should do research on. And so I'm a member of this for the Construction Sector Council. So we tell them, we guide them, and I do it based on input from folks like you about what they should be spending their research dollars on. So we have a work group there, Construction Hazards Prevention Through Design, looking at this stuff. And so we meet about twice a year to go over that. NIOSH held a big workshop in Washington, D.C. in 2007. All kinds of folks showed up, all different industries, actually not just construction, talking about this prevention through design concept. And it was a good workshop, and you'll hear more about that from NIOSH. And the last one that I'm involved in is the ASCE Construction Institute Prevention Through Design Committee, and that also has been meeting. Not as the success has been a little bit less because of the barriers that I'm going to talk about. But anyway, my point here is groups are doing this. It's not just this idea in the sky. So one of the things that ASC and others have a problem with is liability. I'll talk about that. We recognize there's barriers here, and so the question, what I want to do is, here's what I think are my ideas for getting around them, and then we'll hear from you at the end and see if those sound reasonable. My kids are in high school. I kind of doubt that we're going to see a lot of this design for safety while they're still alive, much less me, but maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. So this liability, there's no doubt, is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. I mean, you just can't get around it. It's unfortunate, but that's the world. That's the U.S. anyway. I don't have any problems with attorneys. I have them in the family, but let's face it, their job is sometimes to make owners and others pay for unfortunate things that happen. And so what we are saying is we do not want what I'm saying today, what ASCE, the fact that we even have this Prevention Through Design Committee, anything that we may get to change the way the industry goes, we do not want that give fodder to attorneys to sue us later on. So we're not suggesting that designers should be sued. Absolutely not. But we do think, again, that designers should do this on a voluntary basis. And right now, everybody's familiar with what? Either the EGA CDC, right, Engineers Joint Contract Document Committee, either those general conditions, or maybe the AIA, A201 architects, or maybe AGCs. Everybody knows those model conditions. Well, what we're saying is let's modify them a bit, not to break down that firewall between designers and safety. We're just trying to say is let them do it on a voluntary basis and make it very clear that what they do during design has nothing to do with what goes on during construction. So some of my colleagues on ASCE were just furious that I would suggest that we revise the EJCDC documents. And I'm just saying, you know what, just kind of chill out a little bit, open up your ears, and talk about what could be done to help the profession, not to hurt it. So that's still a point of contention. Again, I suggest legislation kind of like a Good Samaritan legislation, the idea that we could do this on a voluntary basis without incurring a lot of risk. So some things that I have suggested have been, like I say, misunderstood and really rejected, but I think there's some things that we need to continue to talk about. And yes, we'll have to get attorneys involved to help us flesh that out. But that's, I think eventually we'll get there. Second big barrier is costs. There's no doubt about it. Just like we heard in the connection session prior to this, which I very much enjoyed, there's going to be extra costs associated with having designers think about safety. And it's going to take time. We're going to have to train them all. We're going to talk about that in a second. There might be some overhead costs, some checkers or whatever quality control for safety. It's just going to take more time for designers to be doing this. And so I think the solution is what you all think about already. Avoid the owners who are, give me the lowest possible cost right now, versus to educate them about the whole life cycle, right? The idea that, hey, if I can save you, spend a little bit more, spend $1 now in design fees, I'm going to save you $10 during construction, and I'm going to get your project done faster. So the more we can get smarter, educated owners, that's really going to help, especially owners who have a owner wrap-up insurance program, right? The OSIPs, owner-controlled insurance program, really makes sense for them. But it takes a certain savvy owner, and no offense, but sometimes the owners in the commercial building market are not, they're only looking at what can it cost me right now. So we've got to think about it. We've got to address this cost issue, but again, I think we can get there. Last barrier to talk about is this idea of, do designers, are they even capable of designing for safety? And I have to say, again, I'm a civil engineer. I went through undergraduate, graduate school. I didn't hear about safety. I mean, I don't know how many of you, right? You didn't hear much about safety at all, just maybe a smidgen, if anything. And so we recognize that. So one of the things we want to do is, one, add safety to design professionals' curriculum. So I teach at a primarily undergraduate university. We only teach civil engineering. We don't have construction. I mean, I teach one course in it, but it's civil engineers. Do we have room in our curriculum for safety? Heck no. I don't even have enough time for construction issues. So it's a fight there. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but there's a policy by ASCE, and it's been adopted by many of the states, that you're not going to be able to get licensed after 2015 without 30 hours extra of education. In other words, the bachelor alone won't cut it anymore. Not sure if you're aware of that or not, 2015. But so maybe once that goes into effect, we add a 5th year to a bachelor's or a master's, maybe we can start adding that in. For those who are not students now, who are like me out in, way past the undergrad days, well, we start developing a 10, 30-hour course now, or maybe a 10-hour course on design that focuses on designing for safety. So that's what we're thinking about down the road, educating them. But probably the most important thing is that third one, the tools. We've got to equip designers with some kind of tools to help them know what they're doing. So there's some things out there now. We're not there yet, but let me just tell you a little about that. This is something that CII, Construction Industry Institute, they're out of Austin, Texas. Big owners, big contractors put in a bunch of money into this consortium and hire a bunch of good research, kind of like AISC. And so the CII developed this thing actually 10 years ago. Jimmy Hinsey did it down in Florida, and it's a program. And so for each trade, I know you can't see that, this is just a screenshot, but for each phase of construction, it gives you a checklist. So I think there's like 457 altogether, something like that. So this is a start. It's not perfect. It's getting better. They're coming up with a new one. Unfortunately, you have to pay for this. So that might be a turnoff for some folks. But it's getting there, and I think it will be a tool. A lot of firms have checklists. And so I told you about that one, that CII tool. Other firms have just the checklists alone. So again, what you do is, for example, structural framing, and it just goes through, are you thinking about this? Are you thinking about that? And that's helpful. So checklists are a good thing. Again, not a lot out there. Most of them are, I don't know if they're proprietary, but they've been developed by specific firms for their specific things. This is a website, actually, that I run. I had it up for about 2 years. It's called designforconstructionsafety.org. I don't know if anybody's ever seen there or gone there. If you have, it may look different because I just redesigned it, tried to make it a little snazzy. The student was telling me it looked too boring and out of date. So we updated it a little bit. And it has things like, you see, this is the links page, and it has some resources that can tune in. So this is a decent, I'd like to think, decent resource for you. I don't make any money off it, of course. It's just something I do for service and for fun. And so it's www.designforconstructionsafety.org. And if you do go there, which I hope you will, and you got some comments, send them to me. You'll see my email there on the website. I'd love to hear how I can make it better. The neat thing is, again, I can track this. I don't know if you know about Google Analytics, but you can see who looks at your website, and it's all over the world that people are looking at this whole initiative. I think people want to see what U.S. is doing, and they already know what's being done in Europe and Australia. So this is a worldwide thing, and we're just a little bit behind in the U.S. On my website is some other links. For example, here's that. If you want to learn more about the Construction Alliance Roundtable, there's a link there, NIOSH. And then I take you actually to places around the world, UK and Australia and others that have some helpful tools for you. So, for example, here is something from the CDM. Remember I said that Construction Design and Management? That's the UK's. And they have about 20, 30 of these sheets. This one happens to be for roofing. And just trying to say, all right, you're a designer. You're designing a roof, or an architect or engineer or whatever. What safety type things should you be thinking about? What the specific safety decisions can you make? For example, I mean, this is a classic one, parapet roofs, right? Building code says they should be 30 inches. We'll just bump them up, 4, 6, 8 inches, and now they're fall protection from the beginning. Common sense things like that. It may not cost much, won't change the aesthetics, and yet it's safer for the construction worker. So there's things like that that are covered. Skylights, other issues. You may not realize, but the steel industry is the poster child for this whole thing. And you say, what? I hardly even heard of it. Well, that's because of what Barry mentioned. The National Institute for Steel Detailing and the National Erectors Association of America have put together what I think is a fantastic manual. I'm not getting paid for this, but I'm going to point to Jim Larson, who's worked hard on it. He's going to be, what room are you going to be in, Jim, after this? 121C, 4:15, I think it starts. I highly encourage you to go there. I'm going to be there. You'll see more of this. But what they've done is they've gotten the field erection people, right, who know about safety, who know about productivity, etc., to put together in a book a whole bunch of great images just to educate the engineers. And so if you're a structural engineer designing in steel and you don't own a copy of this, I hate to say it, but you don't have an excuse anymore. Because this is out there for you to educate yourself. It's probably, I think the first version I've seen was maybe 40 pages. Has it grown or not? Okay, about another 15 pages. But really common sense things, and not hard, and it's not going to cost, in very few cases, it's ever going to cost even a penny more. So real good insights that they can do, just about, where the columns should be and holes for the, for the cables. You say, well, I know about that sort of thing. Well, how about, avoiding hanging connections so they can bear on there, and therefore you're not putting an iron worker as much as risk while he's putting in those 2 bolts at least. So things like that, the idea of sharp corners, right, chamfering back so people aren't hurt by that. Also some awkward connections, right, make sure there's enough space to get in there with your torque wrench or whatever. Just a lot of common sense things. In fact, here's a great page here. This is all the tools that iron workers use, steel workers use to do their work and what their clearance is and things like that. And so it doesn't take a lot of time to study this, and yet I think it'll make you a better designer. And either the least thing you'll do is you're going to save somebody from busting their knuckles as much, and who knows, honestly, you might even save a life or two by learning this book. So again, I commend the industry for having this, and it's the industry that I get most excited about. I talk about this with electrical industry and concrete and other things, but the steel is ahead of the curve. You're still not quite there yet, frankly, and Jim will probably talk about that, but it's moving forward. You got the tool to do that. So that's a good thing. Again, this is not just a great idea. There are folks who are doing it, and particularly design builders. Why design builders? Because, remember, OSHA says you, employer, have to have responsibility for your employees. That doesn't apply to design engineers when they're just doing design. But if you're a design builder, now those folks in the field, those construction professionals, are my coworkers. They are my employees. And if I can save their lives and reduce my workers' comps, I'm going to make my company more money and add my bonus. So design builders have a lot of incentive to do that. And so the URS, Washington Group, now recently bought by URS, has been doing this for a long time. And they've really led the way in their training and other things. And so Brad Giles, I don't know if you know him, but he's a great guy. And he and I have collaborated a lot, given presentations, and I've learned a lot from him. So they are one of the leaders. Jacobs is doing it. Again, they're driven. They're a firm who does a lot of work in Europe, so they have to do it over there. And so they're bringing it over here slowly because they're still getting a little resistance, but they're making it happen in the U.S. Same with Parsons. And in fact, the CEO of Parsons has said, I want safety to be, we want to be the safety leader, and we see that their mod factors and everything else, their incidence rates are already incredibly low. And yet, they need to take that extra step. And the CEO says, you know what, the only way I think we're going to be able to do it is if you start thinking about design for safety. And so they're starting to move on that. Fluor is another big process firm that is doing this. And then the last one, Bechtel, and I have a couple colleagues in the audience who've come, and they've been doing this for a while too. In particular, let me just jump ahead. This is the Jacobs Safety Net. So Jacobs, remember, trying to educate people a little bit. So this is just their own intranet, I guess, say, between the company, little newsletters and things like that, trying to get a little attention. They haven't mandated anything yet. They're trying to do it on a voluntary basis, but it does start with information. So I commend Martin Jung and others at Jacobs who are doing this sort of thing. But Bechtel is really moving forward on some things. And what they're for them, remember how we heard in that connection design presentation, some structural engineers want it for control, right? They want to have control of that. I think that's Bechtel's philosophy, and they can speak afterwards. But all kinds of neat things here represented in this this simulation of this drawing, but solid model. But let me just show some pictures of it, and I thank Martin, which I think we'll hear about afterwards during Q&A, sending me these pictures from Bechtel. So the idea of temporary platforms, right, and that'll make the work easier, lifting points, lifelines in there are part of their process. The idea of modular platforms. So if we know that these are going to be good work platforms, let's prefabricate them on the ground. Remember how we talked about that? Don't do it in the air. Prefabricate it on the ground. We'll save a lot of money if they make them more uniform for procurement and the installation, learning curve, etc. And so here they're prefabricated stage, then we put them in site, and that makes their work safer too. So that's an example of a couple of those principles of design by safety by design. And the last one to show you is some lifting clips, right? And then the rungs to climb up. So make it easier. Right from the beginning, how can we make erection easier and faster and safer by things we do during our design and detailing? And so I commend Bechtel for what they're doing. And so I thanks for those photos, because it shows what can be done. And some of those other firms are doing similar type work as well. It's not just design builders. Owners are doing it. The Southern Company, I don't know if you've heard of them, big power manufacturer. They own their power plants. They design and build them themselves. Actually, they often get help with the build, but they often design them. Headquartered in Birmingham, Alabama. I was asked to go down there with a colleague and review their design for safety program, so I'm pretty familiar with it. They're doing some neat things, and I'll show you one of their checklists in a second. Intel, I think we've heard of them. Nice owner, very progressive. They have implemented this thing well, saved them money, and they're happy with it. They're not doing it on every project, but they're doing it on some. Harvard University. You say, well, what's up with that? Well, they're actually just got some very progressive facilities management people. And 2 weeks ago, I was at Harvard participating in a course. They had a week-long course for just folks like you, design professionals, construction professionals. There were a lot of big owners in the audience. And they took this continuing education course on design for safety. And so I was honored to participate in that a little bit. Brad Giles from Washington Group was also there. So they're moving forward on this. They've gotten a little resistance on making it happen on every project, but you'll hear more about that. And then last one, sorry I cut it off, but the Army Corps of Engineers is moving towards trying to get anchorage to systems required in their project. So you'll hear more about that. Here's just the design for safety checklist put out by, this is for just one area, civil. This is the Southern Company. They have it for controls. They have it for electrical and other things like that. So just something that they have to use on every single project. And then the other part of it was that collaboration. The construction folks have to be involved in these meetings and filling out these checklists. So that's an important part as well. I guess I'm bringing towards a close here, and I want to just say, for those of you who are thinking, all right, now what do I do with this? Sounds like a great idea. Yeah, there's these barriers, but this tool guy is convincing me that maybe we'll get around it. But if I want to do something today, I leave here and the boss says, what'd you hear, what'd you see, what can you do? Well, I just want to throw out my thoughts on some very specific steps you can do right now. And it has to do with culture, processes, and clients. It's got to start with a culture, right? And it's not just cliche. The top management has to be committed from that right from the beginning. Your values have to be not about, you can be about customer satisfaction, but it better not be, number two, better not be making a buck, right? Probably ought to be getting people home safely. So that culture, getting that as a priority, safety as a priority. needs a big part. Or if you're a design firm, the idea of we're going to design for safety constructability, not just cost and time. So you got to get that management commitment. And again, maybe your designers are motivated by the code of ethics. Maybe you hang that up on their wall and remind them of it. Or maybe your folks are, they're bean counters, they want to know payoff data. And so you show that slide about how it's going to help premiums, workers' comp premiums and things like that. So get them motivated to follow it, whether it's ethical or the almighty dollar. Number two, you got to get some processes. You're going to have to change some things. So remember we said, educate those designers about construction safety. They've probably not been exposed to it before, maybe a little bit. So make everybody do a 10-hour course. Washington Group has a 16-hour course, and they're happy to share that curriculum with anybody. So if you want to know what do they train on, they're happy to share it. Number two is get that kind of interaction. Remember how I said Southern Company, the construction folks and the designers are talking? Hard to do with a commercial building where it's design, bid, build, right? Because you don't even know who the contractor is going to be. But to the extent you can do that, that's a very good thing. And then finally, have some kind of tools. I mentioned here's that CII tool that I talked about that you have to pay for. Here is the chair process. It's one of Australia's work products, and it's for free, downloaded on the internet. So just some things to help you get either that interaction, that flow of information from the field to the design. Maybe it's through a computer database or a checklist, or maybe it's through meetings. That's part of what you have to decide. And the last one is, to some extent, you could go start implementing this, and you'll be beating your head against the wall if you got the wrong clients. Because there are some clients who will not get it. They will not pay for it. They won't give you the time to do it. And you've got to decide. You hate to walk away from bread and butter, but wouldn't it be nice to educate those clients and get the ones you want? So typically, the folks who are hiring design builders, process folks, maybe infrastructure folks, well, you don't even need the client for that, actually, because you're motivated to do it. Whatever you do during design is going to help your folks in the field. But for other folks, international, when I talked to Jacobs and I said, what's going on out there? And he says, you know what, we are mandated to do it now. UK makes us mandated in our process, but the Middle East clients, some folks out there in the petroland, are saying, you cannot bid. Don't even give us, in a request proposal, don't even give us a proposal unless you can show us how you've got this prevention through design or design for construction safety in your organization right now. So you'll see more of that internationally, and particularly on the industrial side. Again, that process market tends to be a little more savvy about safety. And the last one is anytime you can sit down with your client, this is all common sense, and educate them, and you can have some dialogue so that you can get them thinking about life cycle costing, that's going to make sense. When it's hard bid, they have no incentive to keep working with you, it's hard to do that. But when you get it negotiated, I think it's a good thing to do. So I'm wrapping up, which I'm getting my 15 minutes or 20 minutes for good discussion, so I think we're in good shape here. Again, I'm hoping you take away from this is that this design for safety idea, or safety by design, it is the right thing to do from an ethical perspective. And if you don't believe that, then go for it from the bucks. It's a smart thing to do. We got problems, we got barriers, but we're going to get there. Again, maybe it's not my life, maybe not your life, but we're going to get there. And again, I commend you folks for what you're doing already. So if you're thinking, well, I don't want to be ahead of the wagon too much, Steel is the leaders, so jump on that wagon. And particularly design builders and owners has got to start. That's the place where it should start. And then we've said that three things: culture, processes, and get the right clients. So here are some questions that I want to propose to you, and I'm hoping that you will help address that. You can talk about whatever you want, but here's some couple things that I thought we might talk about. I really would like to know whether there's ethical or not. Maybe you don't want to go there, but I think there's some ethical things. Is this a great idea that's not going to work? I mean, let us know. Talk about it, It's just this liability is too serious. Should AISC have a policy? Right now, they don't have any policy on this whatsoever. I had an article in Modern Steel Construction, so they're open to it a little bit, but they're not ready, I don't think, to have a policy. So for those of you involved in this, you tell me, should we try to initiate something on that? And do you agree with me that I think most designers just don't know what they're doing yet on this, but hopefully they'll get there, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you did have been exposed to more safety than I thought. And then the last one, does it need to start with the owners? And if so, do they have an ethical obligation to actually start demanding it, even in all markets, even in the U.S.? So those are my thoughts for questions, but we can address whatever you want. If I may, let's see, just to see, Martin, any comment you want to throw, or Jim? I know you have to go get ready for your presentation. Anything you want to say quickly before we open it up to?
I want to compliment you on the topic. One of the things we did, especially in 30 years I've been change, I've been a fabricator, I've detailed, I've been a steel erector, worked for Choice Company. We've gotten over the fear of speaking to our competitors. We always have a bid day, usually the day before, the day after the bid day, or a competitor has something, right? Particularly in the steel erection industry, we were sort of forced to think on how we can develop safety ourselves because if we were
Doesn't make any sense. I think the problem is, like I was saying earlier, all these specifications like NEET, for 3 amp, are all trying to improve recycling of building materials. And my steel storage concept is weak. Actually, it's relevant, but actually the concrete is very poor. So therefore we're giving warnings, trying to ensure it built materials, like sometimes steel. Now, their agenda would be different.
Even though the trade so I think a lot of this dialogue, I think we share the thoughts. I might want to check with you afterwards on maybe what the best way to approach the engineering community, the thoughts from this. Just as you don't always understand, we don't understand the expenditure.
That didn't make it, unfortunately, on the recording, so let me just sever it very quickly, and that is, what Jim Larson said, that it's collaboration, right, that has been between firms, that has really enabled the improvements in safety over the last 30 years. And what he said for the steel industry applies to all. CII, the Construction Industry Institute, realized, you know what, we can work together. It's not, I don't care about competition, let's talk about saving our people. So what's happened in the steel has happened in other ones as well. And so, again, let's keep collaborating, not only between competitors, but, again, that discussion between designers and constructors. So thank you, Jim. Martin, anything you want to say? Did I do any injustice to your photos there?
No. Well, actually, I think the reason it started a lot with the design-build firms is because the liability issue just goes away. You're responsible to your own firm the same. So we have the opportunity to sit with our constructor, because it's another arm of our same company, and review the details, review methods, and then we can build that into the design. Much of what we put into our standards, and now when we sit down, even when we don't do the building, when we sit with a subcontract director, we'll sit and review our standards with them, we'll ask them, are there any things that they would need? And we do this very early so that we can incorporate those types of things as well.
Yeah. Again, just for the record, Martin pointed a good point. It's not only design build, it not only favors the drivers of it, but also you got that less barrier, that liability. So that's a good point. And I think my colleagues in American Society of Civil Engineers, when I tried to say that, say we're just pushing this mostly for design build, then they say, oh, now you're advocating design build. What about us pure designers? So, I mean, there's just sometimes it's hard. But we'll keep working with the design builders for a lot of reasons. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I think you're missing the mark.
I'm going to write this down so I don't forget it. Keep going.
Because I think that safety has to start with the individuals who are doing the work.
The starting point
And
is the
designers will then take note once those individuals get the feedback up the chain to those who are requesting to do the work. And it's only then that you will get meaningful response to design for safety. Because it really centers on the actual tradesmen that are doing the work. And I think the steel industry has been quite successful there because iron workers in part are professional at what they do. And there is a very good communication between the iron worker and the fabricator and the detailer, and hence that document that you flashed on the screen. And I think in Canada, where I come from, in Alberta, we have a similar document that we've worked on and developed for best practices for electric steel. So I think that you really need to start at the tradesman level and work back instead of having engineers try to design together. I mean, it may need to in the center, because I'm also a structural engineer. You may need to in the center, but you've got to get the initiative from the individual workers coming forward.
So to paraphrase, you're saying, don't talk to the structural engineers, go talk to the trades. But when we do that, they say they're not going to listen to me. I mean, is that part of the issue?
They have a vested interest in listening to you because they got to go home with their toes and fingers.
Right.
All their toes and fingers in there and
Okay, there, then and back. Yes, sir.
I disagree somewhat with this gentleman. Being the safety officer in our company, a lot of times the individuals who are working up on the steel, erecting, which I used to do myself, I know that sometimes it's a real hassle to be safe. You've got people pushing you to get the job done, so you cut corners a little bit. But if the designers, like some of the photographs shown, could put things in place to help us be safe, so that when we were, as soon as we got the deck on, they had holes punched in the columns at the right locations as they specified for safety rail and the intermediate rail, making it very easy. Or if they had clips on the columns where we could tie off and we had to go out and do something on a cantilever like that, that would make it very, much easier for that individual worker to be safe, and it would give them an incentive to be a little bit safer rather than having to climb down, put up a whole bunch of barricade that he probably doesn't have on site, order it, put it up, take it down. I think what you're doing is fantastic, and I think it has a lot to do with safety and how it's going to be perceived. If they know that safety is part of the design when the fabricator gets it.
Right, sorry. Thank you, sir. And towards back?
All I would say is that we as an industry are producing a product just like an automobile. The design engineers and controllers design it, guys in the factory put it together just like an ironworker. If the safety isn't designed into some place, that product when it hits the road is not going to be a safe product. And I think this is, we're late, we're behind the curve on this. We could have done a lot more in the industry a lot sooner if the engineering community wasn't worried about liability as they are. That's from the record. Oftentimes, we're not provided with all the information that we need to feel to make critical connections, handling numbers, and so forth. I think we can do a better job, and this is a great story.
Thank you. Sir in the white shirt. Yes, sir. And then right in front afterwards.
Well, we're putting together the record. And the first thing I have to say for this gentleman is the iron workers, when they have an accident, lots of times from what I've been inspecting, say, reviewing is, the guy's going to do a good job, this is work job, he wants to impress the foreman, don't want the first one to be laid off at the end of the job. He has a hiccup. That's one thing. But as a fabricator, when we do our drafting and everything, we can provide the anchoring point, we can provide the working platform, we can provide all kinds of stuff that you can include in the price. So not the designer of the process that works in the field, as a fabricator, a director.
So, okay. Jim? Oh, then.
I sat through a lot of people that I know who setbacks involved, and that's where part of this issue is pretty powerful. It's plus point above, so everywhere you go, let's take my one for example. When I used to do safety presentations for my other company, of course, I've done company. Probably the most meaningful safety course I could teach is taking the initial statistics, the little calls, 10 years of practice. And first I would take that in that, and as it was on, I would mention the person's name. And I've never seen him again who do our work. He kept it on the ocean, and you can go home. Because they do the same thing we do every day. So some of the good processes come from the process. But there's not a convenient way to even incorporate it into a design. Again, for the 4-foot down selection. You put a roof frame in, so you turn it down so you can go over. From an engineering standpoint, you probably wouldn't consider that. You've got to talk to people who do the work, and we don't always have the best avenue to bring it forward. So it's not just being forced to do it. But I think it's necessary. We just have to have a better view for the
good.
Let's get it out there. Sir in the white shirt.
I think from a design engineer's perspective, we need to look at this issue in two general categories. One is features that can be added to the design. And the other part is information that needs to be transferred to the contractor. Right now in our industry, we have sort of a fragmented compliance with some of these things. A little bit in OSHA subpart R, some of code standard practice, and it's sort of hidden in a lot of different places. And I'll give you an example. In code standard practice, for a steel frame structure, the design engineer is supposed to identify the lateral load-assisted system for the structure. Okay. When I see bid documents, this is rarely ever complied with very well. Occasionally it's identified, sometimes it's vague, sometimes it's missing. Okay. So what happens? What it means is that there's non-compliance with code standard practice. I've worked under CDM in the UK on 2 different occasions. And what the intention of CDM was, it's not strictly the designer's regulation or law that governs designers, but also constructors. CDM was a means to put teeth into the regulations to make it a legal responsibility to come forth with the right information. Now, from a contractor standpoint, CDM is also good because it obligated the contractor to go through and develop very detailed method statements, look at the structure and identify
A hazards analysis, right?
In other words, developing not only the site-specific erection plan, but also site-specific safety plan. That's really from the constructor's side of the CDM regulations. So I don't think CDM is a bad thing. It put teeth into it. We don't have teeth into the codes that we have right now, and I don't think they're being complied with.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I come from the Northwest in the Seattle area, and a lot of the stuff you show that we've been doing for years for ankle wires and complex and all that. I think a lot of times what gets forgot is what the guys are doing in the class. With us ironworkers, it gets forgotten that there's so much ingenuity out there on the job. When I first got in, tied off by body and tie off. You felt like you're in a dangerous situation. Now everything's evolved up. Another company named Skanska, they pushed what the gentleman up here had said is, taking responsibility for yourself. It's got to be first and foremost. Because nobody's more concerned about me knowing all the notes to me, no matter what anybody says. And the people that are out there working, and they do take responsibility for their actions out there and being safe so they're not hurting themselves or somebody else. But the ideas that came out of, whether it was the stanchion for a deck and tie-off system or using the yo-yo or putting anchors point on or picking an eye on top of the column, engineering some of that stuff and the stuff that really hurts us out there in the field there. When an engineer starts to say, an architect draws up his building, he's got these fancy cantilevers all over the place, but we as the erector got to figure out how to hold that thing up without killing it. That's the biggest detriment to us as directors in the field that I've seen in my 25 years in the industry is keep it building up. The state of the tie-off system, the personal protection system, most of that stuff was developed by ironworkers. The industry, not I see carpenters, laborers, everybody else is doing these horizontal lifeline systems that one of us welded together a bunch of stuff, so that was like a whole week, and we did it.
Yeah. Let me just say one other thing. I know we need to wrap up here in a second. So my structural engineer friend, he's right in, first of all, absolutely everybody needs to take responsibility for themselves, and this is not about abdicating that at all. That's one thing. Secondly, he's right that we don't have enough trades who have identified what should be done, designed more safely. Right now, steel has it, and that is about it. So other trades, nobody's going to be out here in AISC, but I'm trying to get that going. So some good points there. Last one. I'd love to hear from one more structural engineer with a little more pushback about this, because yes, John.
I'd like to argue that some of the things we're talking about in terms of say pole pole placement for cables or some of the other things shouldn't be at the designer. I'm thinking from the standpoint of a consulting designer that's building, say, a commercial building, not design build, because the designer does not know, for instance, what the erection sequence is, so knowing where the images will be at different times. The other thing is expecting the designer, structural engineer, for instance, to keep up on all of the latest OSHA, safety, whatever. I think is asking a bit too much. I believe it's the fabricators, and that's what I've seen. The fabricators are the ones that know what the standards are, what they need, what the sequence is going to be. And I see it all the time. Coming back on shop drawings, I remember the first time I reviewed a set of steel shop drawings, and when I was a first, second year structural engineer, it took me forever to figure out where all these holes were, all over my columns. Why do these columns all have holes in them? And someone answered the question. And so, that happens. It gets injected into the drawings. And I think that's the right place for it.
Barry, you, sir, are a structural engineer. Anything you'd like to, you've been a great moderator, anything you'd like to push back a little bit or give Sarah some insights as an engineer, design engineer?
As I expected, you inspired.
I think it's 4 o'clock, so. It's Jim Lar, OSHA Revisited, 126C, I think, so hear more about it. So thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate your attention. Enjoy the conference. Thanks.